I had just stepped out of the courthouse, clutching the divorce decree in my hand. My ex-husband sneered, mocking me for having no home to return to and being unwanted by anyone. I simply gave him a cold, indifferent smile, then immediately dialed my eldest brother, a corporate titan on Wall Street. Pull the capital, freeze the sterling accounts. His entire family was currently taking his mistress for an ultrasound. The moment they heard that I was the fourth child of the Vance dynasty, one of the wealthiest families in the Hamptons, their world collapsed completely. The heavy glass doors of the New York County Supreme Court closed behind me. The soft click sounded like a cold, dry, final period at the end of a 3-year marriage. The Manhattan sky in the late afternoon was a slate gray. The wind cutting through the narrow corridors between skyscrapers, carrying the scent of exhaust, ink, and that familiar emptiness I had carried throughout my days as a daughter-in-law of the Sterling family. Julian Sterling stood opposite me, waving a fresh, green-covered document. He slapped the folder down onto a metal railing with a dull thud. He didn't bother to hide his disdain, the corner of his lip curling up as if he had just won a high-stakes poker game. "So, as of today, your free ride is over," Julian said. His voice wasn't loud, but every word stabbed into my ears like a needle. "I must have been blind to marry you. A woman with no status, no family backing, who can't even handle the simple task of giving me an heir. Why did I keep you around for so long?" I bent down to pick up the divorce papers. My hand didn't shake, and I didn't cry. I had cried enough over the past 3 years. I had cried in the kitchen when my mother-in-law called me a barren waste of space. I had cried in the bathroom, listening to his relatives snicker behind my back at Thanksgiving dinners. I had cried late at night, lying next to a husband who turned his back to me, cold as stone. Today, my tears had run dry. I flipped open the cover, looking at my name printed in stark black and white, Elena Vance. I chuckled softly to myself. It turns out a chapter of a human life can be wrapped up in a single sheet of legal paper. Julian took a step closer, his breath smelling of mint and arrogance. "You think you'll find someone better than me out there? Keep dreaming. With your background, you'll be lucky to find a job flipping burgers. Now that you don't have my kitchen to hide in, let's see how you survive." Beside him, his friends' men in shiny, overpriced Italian suits laughed along. Their laughter echoed off the cold pavement, sounding like the tearing of dignity. "Julian's right," one jeered. "A woman like that trying to play the CEO's wife? She'll probably go back to the boondocks to raise chickens." Those eyes were like needles pricking me. But strangely, I no longer felt the pain. The worst pain was already over. When a person has been trampled to the absolute bottom, they either die or they are reborn as something else. I was the second kind. I looked up, staring straight at Julian Sterling. In his eyes, I saw a man drowning in imaginary victory. He thought he had swept a weak woman out of his life like dust out the door. He had no idea that what he had just pushed away was the retaining wall that had silently shielded him from the wind for 3 years. I didn't say a word. I just reached into my trench coat pocket and pulled out my iPhone. Julian frowned, his tone shifting up a notch in contempt. "Who are you calling? Calling your mommy to cry? Or calling someone to beg me to take you back?" I opened my contacts. My finger stopped at a name listed simply as Marcus. I pressed call. The ringing tone was steady. Julian laughed maniacally. "What kind of act is this? Marcus? You have a brother named Marcus? Who do you think you are? Some secret heiress?" I didn't look at him anymore. "I'm listening," I said into the phone. I only heard the silence on the other end for a split second before he picked up. A deep baritone voice, devoid of emotion but heavy with authority. "Who is this?" I took a deep breath. For 3 years, I had never asked them for help. I had endured, carried the burden, thinking I could handle everything just to keep the peace in my marriage. But today, I had left that house, and I no longer had a reason to be silent. I spoke slowly and clearly. "Pull the funding from the Sterling Group." 6 words. No more, no less. Julian's laughter cut off as if someone had choked him. He froze for 2 seconds, then burst out laughing even harder, trying to look confident. Pull funding from the Sterling Group? Elena, you're actually insane. Do you know who we are? We're skyrocketing. How are you going to pull funding? If you make the Sterling Group lose a single dollar, I'll call you my grandmother. He reached out to snatch the phone from me. I leaned back, avoiding him, my expression calm. On the line, my brother's voice remained unchanged. You're sure? I looked at Julian, my eyes no longer holding any fear. I'm sure. I paused a beat, then added, Tell Ethan and Lucas to execute the plan immediately. The other end was silent for exactly 1 second, and then a single word dropped like a blade drawn from its sheath. Done. I hung up. The atmosphere suddenly thickened. Julian's friends stopped laughing, looking at each other as if they had just heard something illogical but terrifyingly specific. Julian waved his hand, his voice still trying to sound dismissive. Great acting. But who do you think you're scaring? I'm telling you. Investors are lining up around the block to work with the Sterling Group. Even if you pulled something, it wouldn't matter. Go wherever you're going. Stop standing here making a scene. I didn't reply. I just put my phone in my pocket, turned, and walked away from the courthouse steps. Outside, the late afternoon sun slanted across Center Street, casting a honey-colored glow on the passing yellow cabs. I stood on the curb, the wind blowing harder, lifting the hem of my coat like a flag unfurled. Behind me, Julian's voice still echoed. Elena, who do you think you are? I didn't turn back. I understood one thing. There are battles that don't require arguing, only results. I hailed a cab. As the car began to roll, I saw Julian still standing at the entrance. Hands in his pockets, looking cold and confident. He thought he was the one in power. But at that exact moment, the phone in his pocket began to vibrate violently. I watched through the rear window. Julian pulled out his phone. A second later, his face transformed. The smug smile dissolved like foam. His eyes went wide, then narrowed in disbelief. His lips moved. Unable to comprehend what he was hearing, he screamed into the phone. What did you say? The investor pulled the capital? Who pulled it? I bit my lip slightly, a smile thin as a thread forming. The taxi merged into the busy traffic. I sat up straight, placing my hand on the divorce decree. 3 years living in the Sterling household, I had endured enough. I realized that some people never learn to respect others until they are dragged off their pedestal. I didn't know how fast that call would push Julian down the slope, but I knew for sure the play had just begun. I told the driver, Take me to a cafe in Soho, somewhere with a window facing the street. I need a quiet place to sit. I need to see the city looking calm, as if nothing has happened. And I need to prepare for the next step. The taxi sped off. Behind me, Julian stood frozen on the courthouse steps, like a man who had just had a bucket of ice water thrown over him at the height of his arrogance. I exhaled softly. From today on, I am no longer the woman who bows her head to wipe the floors of the Sterling mansion. From today on, I am Elena Vance, and I will take back everything they owe me. The cafe in Soho was bathed in warm, ambient light. The windows were cleaned so thoroughly I could see the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun. I chose a table near the glass, looking out at the cobblestone street. Traffic was still heavy. Horns honking, people rushing New York, moving as if nothing had changed. Only I knew that somewhere in the financial district, an earthquake had begun to crack the foundation. A waitress brought a menu, smiling gently. What can I get for you? I don't need to think, I said. Just a black coffee on ice. She nodded and walked away. I placed my bag on the empty chair, interlacing my fingers. My palms were slightly cold. I thought I would be shaking, worried, or wavering. But no, the feeling inside me now was like a lake, calm and deep. I had waited for this moment for too long. My phone vibrated. A text from Marcus. Done. $50 million withdrawn. Accounts frozen. I looked at the number. My heart skipped a beat. $50 million. To the Sterling family, That was blood, oxygen, the pedestal that allowed them to stand tall and trample me. And yet, I had once thought I had no power, no leverage. I laughed, dryly. For 3 years I thought I was weak, but it turned out I was just tying my own hands. Outside, the sky was darkening, headlights streaking into long beams. I took a sip of water and opened my front camera. I looked at myself on the screen, a woman with a calm face, eyes no longer cloudy or panicked. I asked myself, "Elena, do you regret it?" No, I don't. Regret is for those who do wrong. I am just taking back what belongs to me. The coffee arrived. The waitress set it down, the aroma strong and bitter. "Thank you." I waited for her to leave before touching the cold glass. I liked the cold. It kept me sharp. I opened my contacts and tapped the second name. Ethan. The phone rang twice before he picked up, his voice warm but decisive. "Elena, where are you?" The way he said my name was unlike anyone else, short, gentle. Just 2 syllables, but enough to make my throat tighten. I looked out at the street, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm in Soho. Just sign the papers." The line went silent for a beat. Then Ethan's voice dropped, as if afraid of hurting me. "What did Julian do to you?" I didn't answer immediately. I let a few seconds of silence pass, letting myself replay the insults from the courthouse. Homeless, unwanted, can't bear children. I had heard those sentences hundreds of times, but today they felt like an exclamation point. I spoke slowly, every word falling clearly. "Ethan, outside the court, Julian said I was useless. He said I had no home, that nobody wanted me. He said even if I knelt and begged, he wouldn't take me back." There was a loud thud on the other end, like a fist hitting a mahogany desk. Ethan's voice went cold, cold enough that I could hear the suppressed rage. He dared. I closed my eyes. He brought his friends to laugh in my face. Ethan didn't curse. He didn't need to. His silence was terrifying. Then he spoke, curt as a military order. "Send me your location. Stay there. I'm handling it." I knew he misunderstood. He thought I was calling for him to come protect me like when we were kids. But I didn't call for protection. I called because I needed him to help me close the final door. "You don't need to come." "I'm fine," I said. "I just want you to squeeze the Sterling Group. From the supply chain to the banks." Ethan exhaled sharply. "You're sure?" I opened my eyes. In the window reflection, I saw myself clearly. A divorced woman. Lips pale, but eyes hard as steel. "I'm sure." Ethan's voice lost all hesitation. "Done." I heard him hitting the intercom, calling his assistant. The clatter of a keyboard, commands fired like bullets. "Send the notice. All partners in our logistics network, anyone supplying or distributing for Sterling, stop immediately. Especially raw materials and shipping. Halt everything." He paused. "Tell our banking division to tighten their credit limit. No extensions. No disbursements. Cancel any loans currently under negotiation." I heard the assistant's faint, "Yes, sir." Ethan came back to the line. His voice lower, gentler, but with a grinding edge beneath the softness. "Elena, how much did you endure these past 3 years?" I took a sip of the bitter coffee, but I didn't wince. "Enough, Ethan." Ethan was silent for a long time, then spoke like a vow. "I'm sorry I let you go through that alone. From now on, I won't let anyone open their mouth to insult you again." I smiled softly, a smile that was neither happy nor sad. "I don't need apologies anymore. I just need them to pay the price." Right then, my phone buzzed again. A stranger's number. I didn't pick up. I watched the screen light up and go dark. I didn't need to guess who it was. Julian must be running around his office like a headless chicken, hit with the news of capital withdrawal and frozen accounts. I shook my head, hung up, and called the third person. A video call. The screen lit up. Lucas appeared in a black dress shirt with the top button undone. Behind him was loud music and the flashing lights of a gala or launch party. He was always like that, handsome, flashy, and a bit reckless like the wind. But when he saw me, the recklessness vanished, replaced by a look of concern and anger. "Elena, are you okay? What did he do now?" I turned the volume down. "I'm okay. Just finalized the divorce." Lucas narrowed his eyes, lips pressing into a thin line. "So he officially kicked you out. What did he say?" I recounted it briefly. No embellishments. But every word I spoke felt like reopening an old cut. Lucas scoffed, a smile sharp as a knife. "He said nobody wants you? All right. Let me show him what nobody wants really means." I looked at Lucas, calmly stating what I needed. "Lucas, the Sterling Group has some entertainment ventures and a boutique hotel chain. I want you to handle the media side. Cancel the brand ambassador contracts, expose the dirt they've been hiding, and get the regulatory agencies to inspect their hotel systems." Lucas looked like he had been handed his favorite toy. His eyes lit up. "Done. Tell me quickly, how clean do you want this? Everything that can prove misconduct, but strictly legal. I don't want them screaming they were framed." Lucas laughed, a cold sound. "Relax. I do this for a living." He turned to someone at the event, his voice changing completely sharp and authoritative. "Get the press on the line. Prepare a media package on the Sterling Group. Breaking news. Real news. Fully documented. Who represents them? I want a list by tonight," he continued. "Call the brands. Tell them touching the Sterling Group is touching the Vance family. Anyone still working with them is choosing their side." Watching Lucas command the room, my heart felt a little lighter. Not out of joy, but because finally, I wasn't carrying the weight alone. Lucas turned back to the screen, voice softening. "Elena, anything else?" I watched a couple walking outside, holding hands, laughing. They didn't know that in this world, there are marriages that aren't love, but prisons. I whispered, "Lucas, just make sure I never have to go back to that house." Lucas nodded. "Nobody can make you go back. I swear." I ended the call. In the cafe, the soft jazz continued to flow, spoons clinking against ceramic. But inside me, everything had shifted. I knew from this moment on, the Sterling Group would no longer stand firm like a mountain as Julian believed. It would crack from the inside out. My phone vibrated again. A text from Ethan. "Partnership termination notices sent. Banks are tightening the screws. They won't have cash flow for more than 2 hours." I put the phone down, hand resting on the divorce decree. 3 years of humiliation. 3 years of being looked down upon. 3 years of being a CEO's wife but living like a servant. Today I left with only a paper and a bag, but I took with me the most precious thing they tried to crush, my dignity. The cafe door opened, letting in a gust of cold wind. I looked up and saw a figure standing outside, looking around frantically. I knew that silhouette too well. Julian Sterling. He had come all the way here. And I knew that when an arrogant man runs to find the person he just humiliated, it means he has begun to feel fear. I pursed my lips, gripping my bag strap. I wouldn't hide. I would let him see clearly that I was no longer the woman kneeling to scrub the floors of the Sterling estate. Act 2 had begun. And this time, the one panicking wouldn't be me. Julian stood right outside the cafe's glass window. His suit jacket was crumpled, as if he had run a marathon. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his usually confident face now etched with panic. His eyes darted around until they locked on to where I was sitting. The moment our eyes met, I saw it clearly. The man who had stood on the courthouse steps mocking me was now standing here like a drowning man clutching at a straw. He pushed the door open, the bell chiming harshly. Patrons nearby glanced at Julian, usually the polished executive, now looking like a failure running from a storm. He marched straight to my table, froze for a beat, then tried to harden his voice. "Elena, what are you doing?" I didn't answer. I lifted my coffee, took a sip, letting the bitterness slide down my throat, then set the glass down gently. Julian was impatient, his voice pitching higher. "Do you know you're destroying my company? Investors pulled out. Accounts frozen. Partners calling nonstop to cancel contracts. What do you think you're gaining from this? I looked him in the eye. You ask what I gain? Julian swallowed hard, kick jumping under his eye. Don't play games. If you know someone, tell them to stop. I can compensate you. I chuckled softly, void of humor. Compensate? Julian, how do you plan to compensate me? By taking me back so I can continue being your maid? Or compensate me by having you and your mother call me Baron again? Julian clenched his fists. I saw his knuckles turn white. Don't bring that up. I tilted my head. Voice still calm. Why? Are you ashamed? Or are you afraid people will know how you treated your wife? Julian opened his mouth to speak. But a phone rang, cutting him off. He flinched and answered. Hearing just a few words, his face went pale. I didn't need to hear it to guess the content. A major partner canceling, or a bank pulling a credit line. He hung up, staring at me as if looking at an alien creature. Elena, who the hell are you? That question made my heart tremble slightly, not from fear, but from bitterness. 3 years as his wife, he never asked if I was okay. Never asked what I wanted. Never looked at me as a human being. Only now, when his empire was crumbling, did he ask who I was. I placed my hand on the divorce papers, smoothing the edge. I am the person you threw away. Julian grit his teeth. You're taking revenge. I looked out the window. Soho was lighting up, the stream of people moving, cars rushing by life, never stopping for a divorce. I spoke slowly. I'm not taking revenge. I just stopped helping you. Julian froze. Stopped helping? I turned back to him. Julian Sterling, you thought your company was strong because you were brilliant. You thought you stood tall because you had talent. You stood tall because someone was silently propping you up. But you weren't grateful. You just thought because you were high up, you had the right to trample others. Julian stepped back, as if shoved by my words. That's nonsense. I built this myself. I laughed dryly. Then, save it yourself. He inhaled sharply, then suddenly pulled out the chair opposite me and sat down. That was the seat where I used to sit at his company galas, treated like a decoration. Today, he sat there begging. Elena, look, I know I have a temper. But you know business. People say harsh things. Don't make this a big deal. I can give you money. How much do you want? Hearing the word money, I found it amusing. For 3 years, he would throw a few $100 on the table and say, go buy something, stop complaining. He thought money bought my silence. Now, he thought money could buy his company's survival. I leaned forward, enunciating every word. You're giving me money? Do you think I lack money? Julian stiffened. You're a housewife. You don't work. Where would you get money? I cut him off. Right. I didn't work because you and your mother wanted me at home doing chores, being a daughter-in-law, a servant. I did everything right. What did you give me in return? A hollow title and insults. Julian lowered his head. Voice hoarse. Elena, I'm sorry. Those 2 words. I'm sorry. If he had said them a year ago, I might have cried. If he said them 3 months ago, I might have softened. But today, they were just paper in a storm. I looked at him, eyes no longer angry, just cold. Are you sorry because you love me? Or sorry because your company is collapsing? Julian looked up, eyes red. He couldn't answer, because he knew. He wasn't sorry for me. He was sorry for himself. I stood up, grabbing my bag. Julian stood up quickly. Elena, don't go. I'll agree to anything. You want me back, I'll come back. You want the divorce, fine. But at least tell them to stop. I stopped, turning back to him. The arrogance was gone from his eyes, replaced by sheer panic. But I felt no pity, only correctness. I spoke, voice not loud, but heavy as stone. Julian Sterling, Listen clearly. I don't need you back. I don't need you to agree to anything. I just need you to remember. The price of disrespect is always higher than you think. Julian shook his head, nearly collapsing. No, impossible. Before he could finish, his phone buzzed again. This time he didn't dare answer. He looked at the screen like it was a death sentence. I walked to the door, the wind from outside catching my hair. I opened the door and turned back one last time. You wanted to know who I am? Julian clung to that sentence, eyes wide. I want to know. I didn't answer. I just smiled a thin, cold smile and stepped out onto the street. The streetlights cast a pale yellow glow on the sidewalk. I walked among the crowd, feeling like I had shed an old skin. I wasn't afraid of him chasing me. I wasn't afraid of him screaming. From this moment, he had lost the things that made him think he was invincible: power and money. I walked to the black sedan waiting for me. As I got in, I checked my phone. A text from Lucas. Ad contracts canceled. The exposé is going live. The Sterling family won't sleep tonight. I closed my eyes and let out a long breath. True. They wouldn't sleep. But I knew the game had only just begun. Julian still had his mother, his pregnant mistress, and a crowd of people ready to blame me. I had to prepare for the begging and the retaliation that would follow. The car merged into the glittering city traffic. I watched the city pass by, feeling calmer than I expected. The car stopped in front of a high-end luxury condo overlooking the reservoir in Central Park. I stepped out, looking up at the lights on the high floors. A new life was opening up, and I would make those who treated me like trash watch me stand in places they could never reach. I told the driver to circle back to the Hamptons estate. That was where I had lived for 3 years but never called home. Throughout the ride, I didn't think of Julian Sterling. I thought of the things that were mine, still in the room on the second floor. A few clothes, my mother's old journal, the jade ring my father gave me on my wedding day, and the dignity I had dropped there for too long. The car arrived at the ornate iron gates. The security guard checked the plate and opened them. They still saluted me, Mrs. Sterling, with respect, because they didn't care about the divorce. They only knew I had always treated them with kindness. But I knew respect in this house was conditional. I stepped out, the night wind blowing across the manicured lawns. Cold and sharp. 2 men in black suits were waiting by the gate. Tall, observant. Marcus had sent them. One bowed slightly. Miss Vance, we're here to ensure your safety. I nodded. I don't like showing off, but I'm not stupid anymore. 3 years ago, I trusted too much in loyalty. Today, I only trust preparation. I unlocked the front door. As I pushed it open, the sound of arguing in the living room hit me like a wave. Call her again! Call her! It was my mother-in-law, Victoria Sterling. Her voice was shrill, hoarse from screaming. I called her a dozen times. Julian's voice was heavy with frustration and panic. She blocked me. She's not answering. What do I do now? What do you do? Victoria screamed. You're a man! Go find her! Kneel down if you have to. Apologize. Make her tell them to stop. If the company goes under, what will we live on? In the corner, another female voice piped up, trembling. Mom, maybe Julian should just marry me now. I'm pregnant. Surely Elena will soften up. I recognized the voice immediately. Tiffany Rose, Julian's mistress. She was standing by the sofa in a loose maternity dress, clutching her stomach like it was a weapon. I took a step forward, my heels clicking on the marble floor. All 3 of them spun around. For a moment, silence reigned. Julian stood frozen, eyes wide. Victoria opened her mouth, then choked on her words. Tiffany went pale, her hands tightening on her belly as if fearing the child wouldn't be enough to save her from the coming disaster. I looked at the scene, feeling strangely calm. Julian spoke first, but his voice lacked the sharp edge from this afternoon. It was low, trembling. Elena, what are you doing here? Victoria reacted instantly. She lunged forward, pointing a finger in my face. "What are you doing back here? Haven't you harmed us enough, you jinx? You divorce him and then try to drag my whole family down." I stood still. The two bodyguards stepped forward, keeping just enough distance to prevent her from touching me. I looked at Victoria, speaking slowly. "I came to get my things." "Your things?" She laughed bitterly. "What things do you have in this house? You ate our food, lived in our house, spent my son's money. You have the nerve to claim anything is yours?" I didn't argue. I just bent down, unzipped my bag, took out the divorce decree, and placed it on the coffee table. "I am divorced. I have no connection to the Sterling family anymore, but I will take what belongs to me." Julian swallowed hard. He looked at me like I was a stranger. "Elena, about today. I can explain." I turned to him. So calm it felt cold. "No explanation needed. Whatever you did, I've endured enough." Tiffany stepped forward, voice small, trying to play the victim. "Elena, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to break up your family. I just love Julian." I looked at her. "Love?" I smirked. "Do you love him? Or do you love the Sterling bank account?" Tiffany flinched, lips trembling. What do you mean?" Victoria slammed her hand on the table. "Don't you bully Tiffany! She's pregnant! She's carrying my grandson!" I walked slowly towards her, looking her straight in the eye. "Grandson?" I asked, voice soft but cutting. "Are you sure, Victoria? Are you sure that baby is Julian's?" Tiffany went white as a sheet. Victoria froze. Julian stood like a statue, then blurted out in anger, "Elena, what kind of nonsense is that?" I didn't answer. I just smiled. A smile that dropped the room temperature by 10 degrees. I turned and walked up the grand staircase. Victoria screamed after me. "Stop! What are you going up there for?" I didn't turn back. "To get my things." I walked to the second floor. Every step reminded me of the nights I sat alone on these stairs, waiting for Julian to come home late, waiting for a kind word. All I got was the sound of a slamming door and the smell of strange perfume. The bedroom was the same. The closet was full, but mostly with clothes I bought with my own savings from before the marriage. I opened the drawer, took my mother's journal, the jade ring, and my personal papers. I took nothing of the Sterling family's. I wouldn't give them a reason to call me greedy. As I was folding clothes, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Sterling just lost 3 more contracts. Cash flow dead. They're begging the banks but getting rejected." I looked at the text. I felt neither joy nor sadness. Just justice. I carried my bag downstairs. In the living room, Julian was still standing there, eyes wild. Victoria was slumped on the sofa, looking 10 years older. Tiffany was hiding behind her. Eyes red, still clutching her belly like a life raft. I walked to the coffee table, put my bag down, and said the sentence that made them all hold their breath. "Julian, I'll say this one last time. I didn't destroy you. I just withdrew what I gave." Julian stepped forward. What did you give me?" I looked at him, eyes calm as water before a tsunami. "You'll find out soon enough." I picked up my bag and turned to the door. Victoria scrambled after me, wailing. "Elena, stop. I'll give you anything. You want money? I'll sell the jewelry, the house. Just tell them to stop." I paused at the threshold, not turning my head. Victoria Sterling. Some things, once lost, cannot be bought back with money. I walked out. The bodyguards followed. The heavy oak door closed behind me. In that moment, I heard Julian scream inside the house, a broken sound. "Elena, who are you?" I didn't answer. I got in the car. The interior light illuminated my face in the mirror, a woman who had walked out of hell. But I knew the real hell for the Sterling family was just beginning. I left the Hamptons as night fell. The highway was a river of light, but inside I felt strangely peaceful. I didn't feel triumphant, Nor did I feel pain, just the sensation of putting down a boulder I had carried for too long. I didn't go back to the city immediately. I asked the driver to pull over near a quiet spot by the water. I wanted to breathe, to hear the wind, to ensure I was alive and not dreaming. My phone blew up. Texts from Lucas, Ethan, my assistant. Everything was falling like dominoes. The Sterling Group wasn't an oak tree. It was a tower built on sand. I opened a video Lucas sent. It was footage of the Sterling HQ on Wall Street. Chaos. Employees gathered in the lobby, press everywhere. A text from Lucas's assistant popped up. "Watch this. Julian is in a meeting. About to explode." I played the video. It was filmed secretly inside the boardroom. Julian sat at the head of the table, tie loosened, sweating. A fat executive stood up, laughing. "Congrats, Julian. Finally free of that barren wife. Now that Tiffany is pregnant. We have an heir. You win at home and at work." The room laughed. "Right!" Elena was useless. "Good riddance." Julian laughed too. But it was hollow. He was clinging to the image of the powerful CEO because he was terrified. Then the door burst open. The CFO ran in, pale as a ghost. "Julian! Disaster!" The biggest investor pulled out. Vance Capital. $50 million gone. And they sent a legal notice alleging financial fraud. The SEC just froze our accounts. The room went silent. Julian stood up. "Impossible! We have a contract!" They cited breach of contract due to false reporting. The CFO stammered. Panic ensued. Phones rang. Partners canceled. In the video, Julian screamed, "Quiet!" But his voice cracked. He called his mother. "Mom! The company! It's over! Accounts frozen! Did Elena do this?" On speaker, Victoria shrieked. "Oh my God! Go find her! Kneel! Beg!" Julian froze. He mumbled, "Impossible. She's just a housewife." I turned off the video. I felt nothing but cold reality. That night, back in my new apartment overlooking Central Park, I stood on the balcony. The wind was cold. My phone rang. "Ethan, Elena, Julian is counterattacking. He just posted on Facebook and LinkedIn, accusing you of fraud, adultery, and conspiring to destroy his company. He's playing the victim." I closed my eyes. Typical. When he can't save the company, he saves his face. I checked the post. Thousands of comments. I was deceived. My ex-wife married me for money, couldn't have kids, cheated, and now she's destroying my life. Photos of our wedding, cropped to make me look bad. It didn't hurt. It was just humiliating that I ever loved such a coward. I went to my study. In a drawer, I had a USB drive. Evidence collected over 3 years. Flirty texts between Julian and Tiffany. Hotel receipts. Audio of Victoria calling me barren trash. Proof he used company funds to buy Tiffany jewelry. I messaged my assistant. "Prepare the evidence package. Release it to the press and social media. No commentary. Just the truth." "On it," she replied. 10 minutes later, the internet exploded. The receipts were irrefutable. The audio of the abusive mother-in-law went viral. Julian's victim narrative collapsed instantly. He tried to delete comments, then locked his account. Too late. I walked back to the balcony. "You didn't do anything wrong, Elena. You just stopped being silent." The next morning, New York woke up to a scandal. The Sterling Group's stock plummeted. At 9 a.m., my doorbell rang. Security announced 2 women, Victoria and Tiffany. They stood at my door, disheveled. Victoria, usually so haughty, looked like a wreck. Tiffany, eyes puffy, clutching her belly. "Miss Vance," Victoria stammered. I'm sorry about yesterday. I didn't invite them in." Tiffany was wrong too. Victoria dragged Tiffany forward. "She seduced him." Tiffany dropped to her knees, sobbing. "Elena, I'm sorry. I'll leave him. I'll get an abortion. Just help us. Victoria slapped her. Shut up, you slut. I watched them tear each other apart. You can leave. I'm not stopping the lawsuit. Victoria fell to her knees, grabbing the hem of my pants. Please, I'll sell the house. I'll pay you. Some things money can't buy, Victoria. Tiffany looked up, tear-stained. I didn't know you had this power. If I knew, I laughed coldly. So if I didn't have power, you would have trampled me to death? I pulled out a file and a black card. My name is Elena Vance. My family owns Vance Capital, the firm that built your son's company. Victoria gasped. Tiffany slumped to the floor. 3 years ago, you treated the woman holding you up like garbage. I showed them a medical report. And Tiffany? The baby isn't Julian's. The timeline doesn't match. Victoria screamed and lunged at Tiffany. I had security remove them. The final blow came quickly. The FBI and SEC raided the Sterling offices. Julian was arrested for embezzlement and fraud. Tiffany was caught trying to flee the country with stolen jewelry bought with embezzled company funds. I went to the deposition. I sat across from Julian, in a cold interrogation room. Elena, he wept, handcuffed. I don't need your apology, I said. I need you to take responsibility. He was sentenced to 7 years. Victoria was left penniless, abandoned by her own family for ruining their reputation. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright sun. My brother Marcus was waiting. Done? Done. I wasn't happy he was in prison. I just believed that wrongdoings must have consequences, and women should never stay silent in the face of injustice. I returned to my family's estate in Connecticut. My brothers were there. We ate dinner, laughed. Someone asked, "Are you okay?" I smiled. I'm free. The story of the divorced wife who brought down a dynasty wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. Don't underestimate a silent woman. When she finally speaks, it might just bring down your world.